Hello and good morning, friends. Today I want to talk to you about roots and septic systems. So let's get into it. So you can see I am in the woods, right? What do trees and bushes like to do? They like to grow. And when they grow, they need to build some infrastructure in order to keep themselves from falling down. The only thing that's keeping this super large tree from falling over is going to be the root system underground. All throughout here is where all of the roots are going to go, right? And the purpose of those roots, as we all know from school and learning, right, is that these roots are going to provide nutrients for that plant. Every living thing needs nutrients, and the way that plants get them is through their root system. Now, those roots are going to seek out the most nutritious of soils and wide disbursements of water that they can possibly find in order to give the plant the best chance of success and thriving. Now, when it comes to a septic tank, right, we just put that tank wherever it's most convenient or simplest for us to put. So, namely, if you have a bathroom in the basement, you have to have the tank lower in order to get it to gravity feed into the tank. Now, modern systems, usually you'll just put an ejector pit in the basement to get it up and over so you can put the tank a little bit shallower. But depending on where your toilets and your plumbing is on the home, that kind of dictates where the septic system is going to end up going. So in this particular circumstance, let's just say that you have a forest just like this, and you decide that you want to put your tank right next to that tree right here. Yeah, could you do it? Of course. Anybody can do whatever they want. You could put the tank wherever you please. But when you have sewage water, you're basically putting an extremely nutritious liquid right within reach of that plant. And that plant's going to sit there and it's going to say, that's a nice volume of nutrients that I could just love to get my hands on. And so what'll happen is those roots will just slowly work their way over until eventually they find one little spot. And then that one little spot will grow into a bigger spot, and it'll get bigger until eventually it either causes a clog or compromises the structural integrity of the tank. Roots are incredibly strong. We've all seen it on driveways, the interstate, normal like concrete patios, stuff like that. We've seen how roots can just get underneath of them and just tear up the asphalt, tear up the concrete as if nothing was there to push it out of its way. They move slowly, so it will take time, but eventually they will push whatever they want out of the way. So if your septic tank just happens to be in the way of that tree getting the nutrients that it wants, guess what it's going to go through? It's going to go through your septic tank. So generally, modern tanks are going to be what's called a top seam system. So essentially, majority of the tank will be just one solid chunk of concrete. You'll have a seal, and you'll have the lid. Older systems would have a mid-seam, so you would have basically 50%, and the seal would be in the middle. Now, the seal is most likely to fail, right? The concrete itself is pretty thick, pretty strong. Yeah, the sewer gases will eventually corrode through it, but it takes quite a while, so it's not as common, nor is it as fast. So if you have a mid-seam tank, that seal is the most likely piece to break. And if you get one little tiny bit of that seal that breaks, now you've got fresh nutrient water going all into the soil surrounding the tank. And those roots, once they get a taste of it, they'll start working towards the source. Once they work towards the source, they blow that seal wide open. And now you go from a tiny leak, tiny problem, to a major leak with a major problem. Now you've got roots going through the side of your tank. At least in our state, most of the time, if that happens, you're just replacing the tank. Your state might be a little bit different. The reason why nobody really repairs those tanks is nobody's going to warranty them. And in my opinion, if you don't warranty your work, it's not worth having that work done. But that's besides the point. So the most common way that roots get into a tank are through your seals. So we've already talked about the mid-seam and the top seam tanks, but you also have seals for where the pipe comes in and where the pipe goes out. Generally in our area, it'll be some iteration of plastic. Sometimes it's hydraulic cement, sometimes it's nothing. And same issue occurs, except for the most problematic spot is actually on the inlet side. So if you have roots coming in from the inlet seal, what can happen is those roots can plug up the pipe, and then now, not only do you have roots in your tank, now you got a clog and you run the risk of sewage water going back to your home. That's not fun, and it's not a good idea. That's why it's always a good idea, or it's super important whenever you get your tank pumped, that the pumper's actually looking at all of the seals, looking at the mid-seam, top seam, inlet, outlet seal, just making sure everything's still where it belongs to warn you when something's not working the way it's supposed to work. Now, roots can also get into the system beyond just the tank. They can go in through cracks or bad solvent joints on your pipes, right? So you got 4 different types of pipes that you'll usually see in our state. You got terracotta, Orangeburg, cast iron, and PVC. Now, terracotta usually is just gonna be a bell shape and they'll just shove the pipe in. Sometimes there's a seal, sometimes there's not a seal on the actual joint of the pipe. Iron is generally gonna have, or cast iron is gonna usually have lead and oakum. And then usually the Orangeburg is just gonna be tacky enough that it just kind of sticks together, kind of like a glue. And then with PVC, they actually have a PVC cement that basically melts the pipe to itself. But if you don't use enough, you may not get a good cohesion of the pipe. And that can allow entry points for the roots to get in. Now, if roots are getting into the solid portion of pipe, our recommendation always is replace that pipe if you want to get rid of the roots forever. If money's tight or you don't have the time or the will to do that, you can remove those pipes or those roots by snaking and jetting the pipe. It's only really a temporary solution though. Those roots will eventually work their way back. Roots in a distribution box, terrible too. Same issue as the tank, except for the box is gonna be basically half as thick. Most septic tanks in our area will usually be 3 or 4 inches. Most distribution boxes will usually be about 2. So if you have roots going in through the distribution box, that's another point where you could have compromised concrete. And if you get a collapse, guess what? Nothing's gonna drain and then you get a backup, and that's never a good time. The only spot that's really kind of unavoidable for roots is gonna be your drain field system. In a drain field system, you're gonna have a perforated pipe. And the goal of that perforated pipe is to allow that wastewater into the surrounding limestone and soil. That water is highly nutritious water. You have a perforated pipe, and if you have any trees like this anywhere near your drain field, no matter what you do, those roots are gonna get in there and basically start potentially causing problems. Now, in the perforated section of pipe, does it really matter? Not really, right? Where it really starts to become a problem is when those roots start working their way back to the distribution box, because then they can potentially plug up the pipe or cause damage to the box itself. So I usually recommend, if you have the option of putting your septic system away from trees, do it. But if you don't, like for example, if you have to put it in this forest like the one I'm at now, you're kind of stuck in a situation that you really can't avoid. You just have to live with it and just know that the roots will eventually become a problem. Let me know below. Do you have any root stories? Do you have any issues that have popped up with your septic system, your sewer line, your anything that you've had to deal with roots on? Leave a comment below. I love hearing these stories. Let's start the conversation. If you gained any value out of this, or if you found this entertaining, hit that like button, hit subscribe. I have more videos posted every day on the World of Well and Septic, and I look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow.